Alright, this is Coach Croxton, Raising Aces, doing a pitching analysis of Joseph Elwell. I'm going to take Joseph into his leg lift, the height of his leg lift. So Joseph is very tall, balanced over the rubber. Looks like his head may be a little bit forward, but all in all, pretty good posture here. I always like to point out the toes. So the knee lift toes are pretty much even with the heels. Look at this position here. You can kind of see that the toe is a little bit lower than the heel, which is what I like to teach, but we'll see how that kind of affects him a little bit later on. So we're going to take him into his load. Joe's load is going to right here. We're going to measure his back leg, which is his drive leg, in relation to the ground at this point. So I'm going to use my tool here, and I need to get it like right on. So I'm measuring basically the back of Joe's foot, well, not the back of his foot, but Joe's back foot and back knee. Sorry, take a moment to get this done. And make sure this is straight. So at this point, before he initiates his drive, the angle of his drive leg, I'm going to fix that just a little bit. I'm going to say is about 60 degrees. Ideally, or at least on average, we like that to be around maybe 50 degrees. Elite would even be in the about 45 degree range as far as the angle between Joe's back leg from his foot to his knee down relative to a straight line to the ground. So he is pretty vertical on his back leg at this point. Notice his front leg stride is already initiated and is well out in front of his front hip. He's actually pretty close to landing that front hip at this point. So we're going to take Joe forward from here into front foot landing, which is going to be, let's say, here. So we started his stride at, I believe it was 0.65. Yeah, so about here, the height of his knee lift. So 0.65, and then front foot lands at here about 0.51. So that is a difference of 0.86. So it took Joe 0.86 seconds, or almost a full second, to get from the height of his knee lift to what we call front foot strike, or when his front foot makes contact with the ground and settles. Oh, actually 0.55. So 0.65 to 0.55, so that's actually 0.9 seconds. So that's even slower. So we like to get Joe moving a little bit faster, moving a little bit earlier, so we can cut that time down, if not in half, definitely cut it down by 2.5 tenths of a second to maybe like 0.7 or 0.65. He is a tall guy, so it's going to take him a little while to get down there, but we're going to focus on getting him to move a little bit faster and also generate more momentum, which is also what we're looking to do to generate more ball speed or velocity on his pitches. So the next thing we're going to look at is time to his rear hip opening, which you can see the line in his pants. I'll just draw it right here so you can see the line of his pants. We're just going to look at until the back hip opens fully, which is here. Let me clear this off the screen. So let's say right here. So that is 1.62. So he lands at 1.55, and then gets the hip all the way open, the back hip at about 1.62 right here. So that's a 0.07 second difference, which is not elite, but is about average. Also notice, and unfortunately at this point, Joe has already started torso rotation, and his arm is already up into what we call maximum external rotation, and he's getting ready to release the ball and actually pitch. At this point, where his hip is open, I'm going to take it back a few frames, but when we get to that point, we want Joe's shoulders to be closed and him to be in this position here when his hip gets open, right here. So we need to work on delaying his trunk rotation a few tenths, about 0.07 tenths of a second, not even a full tenth of a second, before he starts this chest and shoulder rotation and going into pitch release. So that's what we call hip to shoulder separation. I want my hips to open like this at this point here, but I want my shoulders to still be closed. That's going to help him also generate more ball speed and velocity. Next thing we want to look at is how long does it take him from here, 1.55 seconds. So it's a difference of 0.9 seconds from the time he lifted his knee till he landed. Now we're going to look at, now that his foot is on the ground, how long does it take him to rotate the lower body, the hips, and then rotate the torso, the shoulders, and release the ball. So full pitch release, so he releases the ball, starts release here, and about here. His arm is going down across, getting ready to go down across his body. That's full pitch release. So 1.75 seconds. So from 1.62 seconds here, he opened up front hip, or back hip, I'm sorry, to pitch release, 1.75. So that's about 0.13 seconds, which is not bad, but he's already started shoulder rotation as well. So it really is not doing him any justice because he's not getting any hip to shoulder separation, which we would calculate by taking the time that he opens the hip, which from front foot strike was, let's say, 1.55 seconds, and the hip open at 1.62. So we would take that 0.07 seconds and we would subtract it from the 0.13 seconds that it took him to get from hip open to pitch release, and we would get 0.06 seconds, which would be insane and probably not even humanly possible, but we know that that time is actually not accurate because his hips. So let me just point out one more thing before we finish the analysis. When we talk about hip to shoulder separation, notice his hip, as his hip opens towards the plate, the back hip, right here, his shoulder also starts to open as well. You see how they're moving together? They're pretty much in sync. So we want to get those unsynced. We want to get those two movements to happen independent of each other to get Joe in a position where he can get separation. He can throw harder, but he can also throw healthier, because the separation means that he has built up enough energy, speed down the mound, He has maintained a good stride. He's opened up his hip before he opens up his shoulder to start his pitch release, and he'll get more ball speed out of it, and his arm will be a lot healthier, or be in a position to be a lot healthier. So we don't want to see anything that's going to prevent Joe from pitching at a high level and pitching for a long time. So we're going to work on these things, and this is the conclusion of the biometrics, the pitch analysis. Joe Elwell.